She has gone through and has beaten the city of Seatac so far in attempting to take her property. If you want more information, go to a Facebook page. It's very good. Stop Seatac Eminent Domain. Facebook, Stop Seatac Eminent Domain. Now, Doris, you've sort of become a national figure on this, haven't you?
I didn't consider myself a national figure, no, but it did get publicity because, you know, a person's property was, as you say, the Fifth Amendment. And, you know, my parents, or my grandparents and great-grandparents, they went across the country to homestead because they wanted property. That's why our country was developed, because people wanted to own their piece of property. And it's so personal to take that, and that's part of our liberties. If we lose our property, we lose our other liberties.
You sound like somebody who was on 60 Minutes in 2004, actually. This is out of Lakewood, Ohio, right outside of Cleveland. Anyway, let's go to the quote there. This is the city of Lakewood's trying to use eminent domain to force the Salites, I think that's how you say it, out to make way for more expensive condominiums, but the Salites are telling the town, hell no, they won't go. And in fact, in that case, the city did condemn the property. They declared it to be a blighted area. It was just their house and some other people that lived in the neighborhood, right?
It was, and actually it wasn't, you know, for what I read, it wasn't really a blighted area. You know, you can take, the way they have designed this out, you can take one house that's blighted and condemn all the rest of the houses.
So let's actually go to the next slide, because this is what the Salites did, and it's important here. There's a picture of the Salites. In November 2003, the Lakewood voters rejected the development plan that would have taken the West End neighborhood, and in March 2004, the voters rescinded the blight designation, which would have allowed the city to take the homes. That sounds to me like that the Salites in the suburb of Cleveland took a political approach rather than a legal one. That must have inspired you, because I got to go to this next thing right here. This is a flyer that you guys had made, right?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of this flyer?
Well, as I was saying before, at the same time that Mayor Shape was saying that the biggest complaint was surface parking lot, they were changing the zone at the cemetery across the street to allow Master Park to have another surface parking lot, which is up to 1,000 cars. And our lot, after they took it away from us, most of it, was a very few, you know, comparatively speaking, few hundred cars. So if it were because they didn't want surface parking, why were they allowing more parking, surface parking?
Well, did the city of Seatac just not like you? They liked Master Park instead?
Well, I wouldn't say that. You know, our property is across the street from the airport. It's a good piece of property, and they wanted that property because I think it was next to Sound Transit. Let's
go back to that flyer just a minute, because you're asking these people to do something. You said Seatac's residents contact the city council, and so you're saying this action must be stopped, and then you were pointing to the city council members. So you became a real political activist here.
Well, you know, it was a group effort. Actually, when the citizens found out about it, we had many citizens in an uproar about this taking of property, because they know if they can do it for one, they can do it for the next person. So it was a community effort. It wasn't just us.
I want to go to the next graphic, because this is an ad that you took out in a newspaper. It was to the people of Seatac, don't sign this check, and it's, what, how many millions of dollars there? Lots of millions of dollars. What does this mean?
Well, because they were going to buy, but let me go back.
Okay.
You know, at the original piece of property, we started right there. Well, when Sound Transit took that piece of property, we had owned and rented part of this property from the other Hughesby family. So when Sound Transit took that part, Mr. Hughesby said, you know, why don't you just take us over or buy this piece of property? I don't want to deal with it. So we made a deal, and so we bought him out. We paid him a very good price. When City of Seatac decided they wanted our property, they were offering us less than what we had paid Mr. Hughesby. And what we found and what they said, we want this property now because the economics make it more viable. In other words, when the market was down in property, so they wanted to take it just then. I didn't want to sell it at any price, but this was their thinking.
Well, that sounds like smart developers to me. Wait till the price goes down, then go buy the property. Oh, that's the government, though.
It was the government.
Let's go to the next graphic because this is another ad. And here was $47 million versus 0 tax dollars. What does this mean?
Well, if they didn't buy the property and we built what we were going to build with a hotel, parking garage, the taxpayer wouldn't be out any money. We would have built it ourselves.
Oh, I see. So what you're saying then is that because you were willing to develop the property under an agreement with the city.
Absolutely.
But they didn't want, why didn't that agreement go forth?
Well, we never can understand that. It's difficult to why they didn't want to honor that development agreement, because they've honored many development agreements in that area. So,
And with you guys before?
well, not with us before, because we hadn't had one before, but I'm not sure.
Here's a closer up view of the property from, again, from Google Earth. Let's go to the next click, because there it is. It's right there on International Boulevard, and it seems to me that there's lots of property around there. I mean, right across is Sound Transit. I mean, you're going to have to build something that can withstand a lot of noise if you've got a train coming by.
Well, absolutely, and that's, I mean, you know, that's when you should have something that's airport related, and they understand that. But, you know, at the same time that they wanted to condemn our property, there were other properties that they also were going to take at a later time. And one of those gentlemen was a Chinese gentleman that had come from China in 1943, and he had bought this property about the same time that we had bought our property. And he, you know, he said in some of these meetings, he said, I came to China, from China in 1943 because that's what they were doing with us. And now they're doing it all over.
So he had developed the property, and the property he'd had for 60 years.
Well, it too was property that probably needed upgrading, but he had plans. Then he was working with Marriott's to build a hotel.
I got some neighbors that property needs some upgrading. You think I could get the city to condemn their house?
Well,
Oops,
probably
sorry about
so if they wanted it.
All right, so the discussion kept going on. You kept working out in the public. Did you go to public meetings or to meetings that people held where they asked you questions about that? I'm not talking about city meetings right now. I'm talking about meetings that were community organizing meetings.
Well, we didn't have specific meetings, but we did have a group of citizens that we chatted with. But let me tell you one of the things that we did do, though, that because after they thought they had the property, you know, and it was on December the 7th, actually, and they were giving 2009. They were giving a pony and dog show at the top of the Holiday Inn that looks right down on our property. And, you know, of all the things that they were going to build, they had all their consultants out with all of the designs and ideas about all the roads that they were going to put through. And at the same time, we rented a room next door. And we brought in our designs of things that we had given to the city to build. And looking down from that window, we put a great, we put our buses, and we put a great big sign and said, stop Seatac, eminent domain. And so instead of looking down and seeing the property, they closed the windows so they wouldn't have to look at our buses with all the signs.
That's a community organizer. We're very, very fortunate to have Doris Cassan on the show tonight. Go to this, it's a Facebook page, really very interesting Facebook page, and it's Stop Seatac Eminent Domain. Interesting, an awful lot about this.